Hello. So fresh and so clean. Welcome back to the PLUME channel, ladies and gentlemen. And today welcome back to another me literally ranking everything in a tier list. Yeah, this is a bit of a regular thing now, like I said. Just fun, bruh. I like listing things. I like listing things I like to list. And I like establishing a dialogue about it. Anyway, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be ranking albums today, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, music is a thing that I like very, very much. Hence why I showed you a bunch of vinyl albums that one time in the collection series. We'll probably dig them out again at some point in the future and I could be fucked. But today, there's a particular artist that we're going to be diving into and ranking all of their albums, all of their EPs, and all of their singles. And there's a little man, don't know why I'd call him a little man. It's a fella, an artist I like very much, one of my favourite artists of all time at the moment. He's called WINDOWS96, otherwise known as Wind96, otherwise known as Gabriel, otherwise known as White Gabriel, otherwise known as Gudang, and I think that's all of the names these released music under so far. Yes. So yeah, WINDOWS96, if you don't know who this man is, he is, I believe he's Brazilian. I think his name's Gabriel Eduardo. He's from Sao Paulo, and he is a Vaporwave artist primarily. He does a lot of different genres within the Vaporwave micro genre, as they call it. Vaporwave is like one of my favourite genres of all time. If you don't know about it, go look into it. But WINDOWS96 is in that genre, but there's a lot of other stuff like synthwave and chillwave and outrun and all these other kind of genres that are within this Vaporwave kind of umbrella, or kind of out with, you know, it's the same kind of thing together. Basically I've got together all of his albums and EPs and singles, and I want to rank them here in a tier list. Going back from his very first album release all the way back in, I think, 2014 to his most recent release, which was very early at the beginning of this year. I've only started listening to WINDOWS96 and I think it was 2017, 2018 now, so actually a lot of these that we're going to be listing here I've literally just found out about because I had to make this tier list first of all. There's some WINDOWS96 tier lists on Tier Maker, but Windows really weird, bruh, because he puts a lot of his stuff out there and then it disappears off the internet for some reason, so I had to do a lot of research and digging to find all of the ones that are currently online. And here we are. Let's just rank the bitches. So here we are. Here's the tier list made by Chaboy. Follow me on Twitter, or X, or whatever the fuck it's getting called now. And yeah, as you can see, pretty much the same tier list as before. S the best, except D, we're not making it the worst this time. We're not even having bad or the worst, because the thing is, WINDOWS96 is incredibly consistent. Pretty much all of his albums are solid. There isn't a bad WINDOWS96 album in my opinion, because the sounds that he explores and all the albums that they contain are all incredibly consistent. All the albums have like a different sound that they explore, and they're all pretty much on par in that way. Like there's no really diverting off of the WINDOWS96 sound path into something that's just really weird and doesn't work particularly. Yeah, all the albums, they have a different sound, they all follow that sound to the letter. Every like song in an album fits within that album perfectly. Nothing feels sticky outy, if that makes any sense. So yeah, he's incredibly consistent, which is one of the coolest things about him. And as a result, the D, well, bad tier has been replaced by D. Don't listen to it. And that's basically for albums or EPs or whatever these released that aren't the kind of sound that I want to listen to particularly, for one reason or another. We'll get into that. And singles, we're ranking the singles individually because I don't think it makes any sense to throw one song into a list containing like full albums. There's only, I think, like 4 singles here. We've got Mirror Gallery, Links, Cry Again, what else? I think there was one more. Yeah, X Dystopia Kid, that's an interesting one, but yeah, these are all the singles. There's not a lot of singles, but I thought wouldn't make any sense if they were all in here. And they're in order of release, so we're just going to dive into it right now. So the first album ever released by WINDOWS96 is this little doohickey here. I've put text on them all, they're really hard to read, but this is basically CCR, this isn't the full name, Pred Dreams, CCR PEDD Dreams. Okay, this is an album that was released by Windows 96 all the way back in 2014. I believe this was a collaborative effort on behalf of Windows 96 and another person. I can't remember what their name is, but I'll put it in post. And yeah, this is the first full-length album that's on the internet released by Windows 96 all the way back into 2014, which is when I think Vaporwave is kind of really starting to become a genre, become recognised as a sound. I think the most iconic album of that point in time, I think was, I don't know if it was 2014 or 2013, maybe even before, but you'll probably recognise the album. It's called Floral Shop by an artist called Macintosh Plus. Well, their name's actually Vectroid, but they change names of like every fucking drop, which is something that Windows 96 does. And immediately I'm just going to put it in, don't listen to it. I don't listen to this album. I sampled a little bit of it for this video because I literally just discovered it today. And yeah, it's just not really it. Obviously this is like when Windows was kind of just starting to find his sound, I think, and as a result, I don't know how the fuck to pronounce the name of this album. Dreams, I'm just going to call it because Dreams is at the end of it. It very much contains this kind of sound that you'd expect to hear from Floral Shop, and if you've not listened to Floral Shop, it's a pretty good album. It's not my favourite Vaporwave album, but it's probably the most iconic Vaporwave album of all time. It's just got a lot of really lo-fi, highly edited, kind of scuffed up samplings from a lot of like 80s and 90s music, like glitches and repeats itself and all this kind of stuff. And this album pretty much does the exact same thing. And it's not the kind of sound that Windows 96 is renowned for, let's put it that way. It's very much, even the album cover, like with the Greek statues and all this kind of stuff, very much harkens back to Floral Shop. So it's a very Floral Shop-esque album. It obviously takes a lot of inspiration from Macintosh Plus, I think, personally. And therefore, you know, the first release, it's not got the Windows 96 sound as of yet. Therefore, I would put it in don't listen to it. It's, you know, as an album, it's fine, sure. It's vaporwavy to fuck, but it's not a Windows 96 album. He's not blossomed into the wonderfully talented fella that we all know him for in this release. And the same goes for his second release, Loner Waves. Even the album cover is scuffed. This is like the kind of stuff I used to make in Rave, my photo editor app, like back in the day. I'd put it in don't listen to it as well. They're pretty much on par with each other. It's pretty much the exact same kind of thing. Down to the art, although I would say this album cover is a little bit better than this one. It's a lot more rough around the edges with like the mad PNGs of like rock solid chests and the mad Windows 96 text at the top and stuff. Loner Waves pretty much just follows the same thing as CCR, PED Dreams. It's just the same kind of sound, very Macintosh Plus, very Floral Shop-esque, not got Windows 96's signature sound as of yet. So yeah, they're both in don't listen to it because they're just kind of rough and just kind of starting to come up, and it's not the sound that we know them for, essentially. Next up, we're coming out with a banger, ladies and gentlemen, actually released in 2015. This is Vibes. Vibes is a fucking stellar album, actually. I think I really like Vibes a lot. Believe it or not, the music at the end of PLUME videos, like with the little graphic and stuff, that's actually the first track of this album, which is called Brand New Day. Vibes is where Windows 96 really starts to create his signature sound. There's still a lot of stuff that's still like to happen and come up for him, I think. But you can really start to hear that signature sound, even with like the vocals the Windows 96 uses, that mad ethereal, echoey kind of vocal stuff that Windows does with a lot of his albums appears in this one. This album takes a lot of samplings from GTA Vice City. As you can tell from the album cover, it's Tommy Vercetti's Hawaii shirt. It's very interesting. He doesn't sample a lot of stuff like that very often, but there's like a lot of quotes and stuff from the games that gets thrown in here and there throughout the album. I'd actually put it in S the best. Vibes is just one of my fucking favourites, bro. I know it's like one of his earliest releases, but I don't know what it is. The name implies the sound. It is vibes for days, bro. But also doesn't just explore a lot of like vaporwave stuff. It's even got like a few Outrun kind of sounds as well. Outrun's kind of like really fast paced, kind of as you'd apply Outrunny kind of synth wavy kind of sound, fast beat and all this kind of stuff. Vibes has got a little bit of that. Yeah, the track after's definitely got that kind of outrunny vibe of the do 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 do. It's just a banger. Brand New Day, the first track in this album, is a fucking banger. It's a fucking bruh, it's just the perfect kind of song you want to listen to on like a beautiful summer's day, sitting in the breeze and the grass and all this stuff, smoking a big fat freaking doobski, dude. It's fucking sick. Yeah, every song's just a banger, bro. Another Day, Red Skies, Run, Facts, like the whole album I just fuck with. Well, I mean, this is actually an EP. Technically speaking, it's an EP because there's not as many tracks. But as a result, because it's such a tight fucking EP with like, I think 5 or 6 tracks on it, every track is a banger, every track is consistent, every track follows the sound. It's very much the progenitor for future releases from Windows 96, and Vibes is in the best. I love Vibes, one of my favourites. Next up from 2016, we've got Raw Killing. This is not one that I particularly fuck with all that much, really. This is an album that's like pure synthwave and pure outrun. It's really kind of high octane sound, which is not really what I particularly sample from Windows 96. I kind of like it when the thing is, with a lot of these albums, they kind of fuse different genres together. Like I said, with Vibes, it's got a little bit of an outrun touch to it, but then it's got a lot of the vaporwavy, kind of synthwavy sounds that I love, and I like it when he mixes it all together and you get a nice sampling of everything. Raw Killing is definitely just straight on, solid outrun kind of beats, and they're all really good, but it's not the kind of thing that I particularly enjoy from Windows. But that being said, just because I wouldn't listen to Raw Killing very often, bruh, this thing fucking shreds as well. Like, it really sounds like the soundtrack from some 90s fucking sci-fi future Blade Runner Deus Ex anime type beat, mixed with Doom, like 1993 Doom. It's a really stellar album in that regard. It sounds like a really fucking fantastic soundtrack. But, you know, it's not my favourite. But I wouldn't put it in average because it just goes so fucking hard. It's probably going to end up in the bottom of good. Raw Killing is really, really rad. The opening track, Time Runner, pretty much establishes the whole thing. You know, there's a lot of like heavy riff guitar and bass and stuff, you know, that that kind of shit. It sounds rad. And I definitely think that the pace of all these songs and like the background percussion and all that kind of stuff that you hear in Raw Killing can definitely be heard in like future albums as well. So I definitely recommend that you listen to that if you like your outrun, if you like your kind of dark synthwave kind of beats. Raw Killing definitely has that. You would very much like that album. And you'll definitely get hooked with Time Runner, the first track. It pretty much sets the tone for the rest of it. Now to kick off 2017, we have one of my fucking favourites of all time, putting it at the top of the best, NEMATOPHY. NEMATOPHY is the album that, well, like I said, Vibes is the progenitor for the Windows 96 sound. This is the one that is the first example of the Windows 96 sound, in my honest opinion. I think NEMATOPHY slaps. I think NEMATOPHY is like the perfect, chill, serene, just beautiful soundscape that this album offers. It's just fucking phenomenal, bruh. It combines these beautiful natural sounds of like water flowing and all this kind of stuff, just like nature sounds, and combines it with really beautiful digital sounds. It just takes you somewhere else, bruh. That's one of my favourite things about Windows albums. They take you somewhere. You can really picture a beautiful world and landscape environment around you when you listen to a Windows track, and NEMATOPHY does that in spades, baby. I also love the album cover for this one as well. The little lady smoking her little cigarette and the beautiful wherever the fuck mountain tops that she's in. Yeah, I definitely think this is the album that sets up the Windows 96 sound for reals, y'all. And again, like I said, because Windows 96 is so consistent, this is the one where like every track, this is like a proper album. Like the ones we've talked about before have either just been EPs or just the early days. This is a full-length album, and every track is so perfectly aligned with each other, and they're all ordered in such a specific way that really does feel like it takes you through a fucking journey, bruh. And this one, oh man, I just love this album. One of the first ones I discovered that when I first started listening to Windows 96 in like 2017. NEMATOPHY was probably like the second album I started listening to, and it's still one of my favourites to this day. Lonely Afternoon, You Know, Dashville, Bad Morning, Weekdays, pretty much the first bunch of tracks on this album just all slap, and they just are all so consistent with each other, and they're so upbeat and tuneful and happy and just serene, and it just takes you to a fucking land, bruh. It's one of my comfort albums, NEMATOPHY, for sure. NEMATOPHY also has a bunch of like free bonus tracks as well, and they're okay. They're not my favourite part of the whole album, but they definitely add to the whole package, so NEMATOPHY, one of the best in my opinion. Next up, I think this one might have came before NEMATOPHY. It came out in the same year. See, this stuff's really hard to find because Windows 96 does not keep his shit in order, or not all of his stuff's on his own album or his Bandcamp. It's all over the place. Like, sometimes he just deletes albums and then they disappear, but this is Cut Up Sections, ladies and gentlemen. Came out in the same year as NEMATOPHY. And this is one that, again, I literally just discovered for this video because I was doing research. And when I listened to Cut Up Section, never heard it before, it was really fucking good, bruh. Like, this is actually like some synth funk, some vaporwave funk, kind of in the same vein as stuff you'd hear from like Luxury Elite or Saint Pepsi and stuff like that. Just really upbeat, banging, funky, funkadelic vaporwave beats. It's really goddamn cool. I never thought Windows 96 would explore sounds like this. Saint Pepsi is like one of my other favourite vaporwave artists of all time, because his kind of sound is very much what Cut Up Sections is. If you're not listening to him, you should listen to Private Caller. That's a good beat. Cherry Pepsi, I think, is an album of his. That one's really good too. Midnight Delight, which is a collaborative effort between Saint Pepsi and Luxury Elite, all kind of has the same kind of sounds you'd expect to hear from Cut Up Sections. And while it's not necessarily Windows 96's sound, he doesn't really go back to explore this kind of future funk, kind of vaporwave funk kind of sound. Contain a lot of samples from like 80s and 90s beats and vocals and stuff. I think Cut Up Sections is actually a really, really good album. I wouldn't put it in great because, again, it's not the sound I necessarily associate with Windows 96. I think if I was to listen to like a sound like this, I'd go to Saint Pepsi. Windows 96 doesn't necessarily do this kind of sound that often, and Cut Up Sections is really fucking hard to find for some reason. I'd put it in the top of good, above Raw Killing. Just scraping great, but you know, not quite up there for the reasons I just told you. Oh baby. Okay, this is Reflections, ladies and gentlemen, another one released in 2017, and this is going to go in the best. Reflections is actually my all-time favourite Windows 96 album of all time. Of all time. Can I say it of all time any more times? Best of all time. Of all time. Reflections is such a fucking beautiful amalgamation of all sorts of different genres. It's got one of the best, most consistent sounds of any of the albums the Windows has ever come out with. It's got such a fucking glorious mix of like dark synthwave and just vaporwave, some outrun elements in there. This is one of those albums that Windows has done that almost becomes like a genre in itself. It transcends vaporwave and dark synth and all this kind of stuff, and it's like an album from the future, bruh. Reflections just bangs so hard, and it's got all the different things I love about Windows, from the great variety in tracks. Even though the variety of tracks actually coalesce with each other fucking beautifully. He's even got a little bit of vocals from Windows 96 on this album as well. Are You Sad Enough, the opening track, just immediately, like a lot of Windows albums, sets you up for the beats that you're about to be exposed to. Just every track, man. Release is my favourite track from Windows 96, and it's not even like a vaporwavy sound, it's just a fucking song from the future, bruh. I cannot describe to you efficiently enough why Reflections is such an amazing album. And even though it's one of Windows' earliest works, it's his best. I don't know what the fuck it is. I really wish you would explore this kind of sound, this amalgam of these different kind of sub-genres put together to make this fucking future album that he came out with. He came out on Twitter one time. I saw in a comment of Reflections on YouTube where he said this album he felt was like super unappreciated, which I think is crazy. More people who like Windows need to listen to Reflections, because the whole thing is a masterclass, bruh. It's even got the 96 right on there to let you know, and that's still his icon that he uses this day, like his PFP and all this kind of stuff. It's just a fucking masterclass album, bruh. It's phenomenal. Again, I can't describe it to you. You just need to listen to it. Listen to the first track. It will set you up for the rest of the album, then just see what you think. And listen to Release, and I think Sharp as Knives as well is a banger. Just those are the ones that I fucking love from this album. Reflections, banger. I want it on vinyl. Please let it come out on vinyl again. Windows 96, please, oh please, I will buy it. Now this is a very interesting one here. This is actually released under a different name. It's released under Wait Gabriel. He goes by Gabriel now. This is like the only album he released under the name Wait Gabriel, and it's called VISTAS, or Vistas of Chaos. Vistas of Chaos is a very dark album, actually. Like, Vistas of Chaos pretty much does what Raw Killing does, but even harder, even darker, even more outrun, even more dark synthwave, kind of really raw and powerful sounding digital instrumentals going on and that kind of thing. It really, you would listen to it, you would not think it was a Windows 96 album, hence why I guess it released under a different name. The beats and I guess the pacing of a lot of the songs in this album kind of sound kind of Windowsy, but they're really solid and really dark and really hard and heavy sounding, which is pretty cool. But again, it's not the kind of thing that I would listen to as a genre. I'm not a big... Outrun's okay, and dark synthwave's okay. I like the sound of it, but I wouldn't sit down and listen to it as I would like Vaporwave and synthwave and all that kind of stuff. Normal synthwave, not dark synthwave, they're like two different things for some reason. The only song on this that I think sounds anything like a Windows 96 album is... Hang on, I'm going to drop in here because the name is very complicated, need to look it up. Promiselenia. I don't know what that word is, but that's the only song on this album that sounds slow, kind of tuneful, kind of relaxing, somber, unlike pretty much every other song on this album. And yeah, as a result, I don't think Vistas of Chaos is one for me. Raw Killing kind of does a bit more for me because it's a bit leaning a bit more on the chill sound, the chill side of like Outrun and dark synth and stuff. Vistas of Chaos is a very dark album and a heavy album. It's a good album. Like I'm saying, there's no bad albums here, but I'd put it in average purely because it's not my sound. I know people would probably love Vistas of Chaos, but if we're just talking about my subjective favourite Windows 96 albums and all the other names he's released albums under, and Vistas of Chaos is not one of my favourites. I'd put it personally as average for me, personally. I'm sure some people would like it, but it's not one of my favourites. That's just the way it is. Okay, next up we've got Pale Meditations. We're still in 2017, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. He dropped a lot of music in 2017. Pale Meditations is not one that I listen to very often, but it's one that's very good. As you can tell from the album, it's got like that, the square border and the little cigarette thing like NEMATOPHY. As a result, I kind of feel like Pale Meditations is like a sequel album to NEMATOPHY. NEMATOPHY, it's a hard word to say. It's not my favourite, it's not the best like NEMATOPHY is. I think Pale Meditations is a much more introspective, kind of slower sounding album to NEMATOPHY. It's not as outwardly bright and happy and just kind of blissful sounding as NEMATOPHY is. It's much more introspective, it's much more slow sounding. NEMATOPHY sounds like an album you'd listen to out in the beautiful, sunny rivers and mountains. Pale Meditations is like something you listen to in a very empty mall, which is also a subgenre of Vaporwave, is mall soft, kind of samplings of like mall music slowed down and made very echoey and distant and stuff. Pale Meditations doesn't have any of those kind of samples, but it kind of has that kind of sound. But it's a really beautiful, graceful album with a lot of really nice songs. I'd put it in great. Pale Meditations is a really great one. Not as good as NEMATOPHY, but Pale Meditations has some bangers on it as well. There's like a lot of piano in this, like with Synthetic Memories is a really good beat. And there's a track called Lost in the Supermarket, so it definitely takes notes from that mall-soft kind of sound, and I'm a big fan of mall-soft in general, so yeah, Pale Meditations definitely nails that. I do like the album cover. I think the NEMATOPHY's a little bit better, but yeah, it's pretty nice. I didn't even mention Reflections one. Come on, bro, look at that shit, fire. Okay, next up we've got Plume Valley. Plume Valley is a fucking banger, and this one sounds rad as well. This goes at the top of great in front of Pale Meditations. As you might tell from the album cover, it's kind of hard to see, but it's kind of like bit crushed, like a level from like a Mega Drive game or a Genesis game, and that's exactly what the Plume Valley album is supposed to sound like. It sounds like the music you'd hear in a Sega Mega Drive game, specifically like that kind of music processor that the Mega Drive Sega Genesis had. The music on the Mega Drive always sounded a lot different from like the NES and the SNES. It's much more heavier, kind of more bassy, It just has a very specific sound to it that Nintendo never had with their consoles, and Plume Valley is absolutely based on it. It's basically supposed to be tailor-made as a soundtrack for a Mega Drive game, and what a game Plume Valley would have been, because it's just an amazing sound, bro. You feel like the king. You feel like the king monkey of the Vaporwave jungle when you listen to Plume Valley. It is such a banger. It's such a unique sound that has not been explored. Kind of like Reflections, except I like the sound that Reflections offers way more, hence why it's my favourite. But Plume Valley is up there. It's very unique, very different of the Windows 96 discography, and it fucking slaps, bruh. If you like video game soundtracks, you'd really like Plume Valley for sure. Island Prairie, bruh, that's my favourite track. There's like so many like bongo sounds and like warbling sound effects that go on with all the tracks and stuff like that. It just sounds very jungle-like, and like I said, you are the king Vaporwave monkey ape man of the Vaporwave jungle when you listen to Plume Valley. It is beautiful. One of the comments on the Plume Valley album on YouTube is, I feel like I just drank water out of a leaf. That's what Plume Valley sounds like. It's a beautiful album, very unique, very different. Hits different. Believe it or not, we're still in 2017, ladies and gentlemen. We're diving into Optimized. Another one that I need to listen to this one more because it is a straight banger. Just want to go through the Windows discography. Optimized is always one I never listened to enough, but man, Optimized is a great one again. I put it in the top of great over Plume Valley again. Optimized kind of does what Pale Meditations does, but even better with that soft sound. It's very ethereal, very distant, very echoey sounding, especially with the first track, which is called Mizume. There's a bunch of kanji as well. Optimized has some kanji in it too, but I don't know what the kanji says. I don't know how to read kanji. But it's got some way more, it's got some funky beats to it as well, with the boom, 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 that kind of sound with like the drums and the tambourine kind of sounds as well, mixed with like this distant, softy kind of echoey echo chamber sound that Optimized has. It's a fucking banger. I really like Optimized a lot. It's at the top of great. It just basically is Pale Meditations but even better, and it's above Plume Valley because it has that more traditional Windows 96 sound I like. And Plume Valley is incredibly unique, but I do love that classic Windows 96, so like his brand of Vaporwave that you hear is stamped into Optimized, and mixed with that soft sound and that boom, 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 that kind of percussion sound of the tambourines and shit. It fucking bangs, dude. It bangs, man. Big fan. Optimized, top of great. Next up, the last album of 2017 is Gradient Horizont, and I'd put it, let's see. Gradient Horizont is actually pretty much, well, not pretty much, it's kind of similar in the vibe that Optimized gives, except it kind of strips away the whole soft kind of sound, I guess, and kind of retains that more, not even like the funk factor of like the percussion and stuff like that. I'll say this, Gradient Horizont has some crazy ass bass, bruh. Like there's a song on it that I need to put up. I'll put it here first. It's going to be in great. It may be at the top of, I mean, not the top. I would say Gradient Horizont and Optimized are pretty much neck and neck with each other, because they're going to retain almost a similar sound, although they're very different as well. Yeah, Transient Feeling. You gotta listen to Transient Feeling if you like bass. Transient Feeling has got bass for days, bruh. It is such a fucking banger. It's a really slow-paced album. It's got that classic Windows 96 echoey, distant vocals going on in it as well. It's got that heavy slap happy bass, bruh, with the fucking Transient Feeling track. Man, oh man. It's kind of got that introspective, kind of more low tone, but man, it's just doing something different. I'd actually say this is better than Optimized. I think they're very close, but this one is scraping the best. It's not the best, it's not up there with these three, but Gradient Horizont, bruh, is just nearly scraping the best, for sure. Next I've got 100 Mornings. This is probably, this is 2018, and I think this is probably Windows 96's breakthrough album. I think it's probably his most famous album as well. Certainly it's the first album that I listened to back in 2017. This is the one with the bonus tracks, it's not the same one. This is the 2020 release. And yeah, bro, I think it's up there with the best as well, probably above Vibes. Probably between Vibes and NEMATOPHY. 100 Mornings, bro, like, it's the quintessential Windows 96 album. It's the one that introduces people to him, I think. This one is actually really hard to describe in terms of how it sounds like. I think this is the one that really starts off Like, a lot of these albums have come before, like NEMATOPHY, Vibes, Gradient Horizon, Optimized. All these ones kind of explore sounds that have been established before. You know, even with Reflections, I just love the fucking sound on Reflections. So 100 Mornings is kind of the album that's, I think this is why it's like the introductory album and this breakthrough album, because this is the one that has the real quintessential Windows 96 sound that transcends all these genres that he is within, and it's his sound. Do you know what I mean? Like, all these albums that come after, all these ones that come after, take notes from 100 Mornings, for sure, for sure. Like, bro, just listen to the first track, Caligula, and it starts off with that weird, fucking weird warbling kind of horn sound, and it goes, and it just hits you, bro. It just sets you up perfectly for 100 Mornings. And again, every single track in this album flows through each other so perfectly. It's that consistent sound again. 100 Mornings just nails. This is the only one I've got in vinyl, because it's the first one I listened to, and it's the quintessential Windows album, I think. If you're going to listen to Windows 96, I suggest listening to this one first, because you'll get an idea of who he is as an artist, I think. Anyway, it's up there in the best, because it's the quintessential and the one that I love. Next up, we've got Nostalgia Gaius, which is an hour-long album that was released under the name Gudang, and the only track, or the only album that has been released under that name. I don't know why. It's a very interesting, unique avenue they went down. I think sometimes Windows just wants to explore different sounds, and he doesn't want to do it under the name Windows 96, hence with Vistas of Chaos and stuff like that. And this one's no different with Gudang and Nostalgia Gaius. Nostalgia Gaius is fucking like 90s dark, not dark, it's like 90s synth, bro. It's like that class, kind of like almost sounds like it's kind of got that Joy Division sound. Specifically, there's a band that I immediately thought of when I first heard Nostalgia Gaius for the first time. It's a Russian synth band called Molchat Dolma. If you listen to their beats and you listen to Nostalgia Gaius, it's that very same kind of sound, that kind of darker tone, kind of retro, new wavy synth sound that you hear from a lot of these bands of that particular era. Nostalgia Gaius explores that just purely through instrumentals and sounds alone, and it's pretty cool. You know, it's good. It's not up there with my favourites, purely because it kind of just stands out in that way. It's a great sounding album. It's a very long album though. Yeah, a fascinating touchstone in the career, that combining this like new wavy Joy Division, Molchat Dolma 90s or 80s-esque sounding synth combined with that Windows 96 signature sound that we hear in 100 Mornings and other albums like that. And it's pretty good. I'd say it's probably scraping up there. Actually, no, I'd honestly put it at the bottom of great, maybe. It does have that signature sound that I love compared to like cut up sections and raw killing. But it's not up there with my favourites. I think these ones just are hitting different compared to Nostalgia Gaius. I'd like to see Gudang. I would like to see Gudang drop something again with this kind of sound. Because I think he could develop it again with this other name that he went under this one time. Because it's very different. I like this fusion of Windows 96 and 80s Joy Division new wavy synth kind of sound. Is very cool. Okay, next up, this is the first album that dropped when I started listening to Windows 96 in 2019. I guess I started listening. When did I think 2018 much. So I think by the time I started listening to 100 Mornings must have just not dropped a little while ago. But this is the first album I remember dropping when I became a fan, and that is Enchanted Instrumentals and Whispers. I couldn't fit the whole name because it's a very long name. And yeah, this is one that I wasn't a massive fan of when it came out. It's got, again, the signature Windows sound that is established with 100 Mornings, but it becomes much more hazy, much more dreamlike, much more warped and bizarre sounding. The first song on this track, I first heard it, I was like, I don't know. It's like wah 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 and all that shit. It's like, it's a bit too warbly and hazy, and kind of just feels like I've just woken up from a fucking like 48-hour sleep. So yeah, the first track, Deep Swim, not my favourite opening track of all time, gotta be honest. There is a few good bangers in here. It's honestly a Windows album. I wouldn't listen to every track consistently, because like I say, the consistent sound a lot of these albums have, you just listen to the whole thing through, like all the ones at the top. Enchanted Instrumentals and Whispers, nah, I wouldn't listen to the whole thing throughout. There was actually a song on this my friend sampled when he made beats, which I think actually the song I used in like the early Career Spectre videos of the opening, that's sampled from this album, which is really, really interesting. But yeah, Enchanted Instrumentals, not my favourite. There's some tracks on it that I really like. I should get some examples for you. Hello Earth, that's a good one. That was dropped as a single before this album came out. Hypnosis is pretty good. Wasting Time, Wasting Time's the name of the song that my friend sampled. That one's probably my favourite track of the whole thing. I can see why he sampled it. That's kind of got that hazy, weird, warbly sound with the vocals specifically, which sounds really, really good. I like that. But yeah, it's just a few examples. Again, Enchanted Instrumentals and Whispers, not one of my favourite ones, but I wouldn't put it in here with good. I'd probably put it at least, I don't know, bruh. Maybe the bottom of good, great again. I'd probably listen to Nostalgia Gaius before I listen to Enchanted Instrumentals and Whispers, to be honest. It's just like, you know, it's great. It's definitely up there with great. It's refined to fuck. It's got that Windows sound that we all know and love, but personally, I just don't like the mad, warbly, hazy aesthetic that runs throughout the whole album. It means that I don't want to listen to the whole thing, especially the opening tracks are not my favourite at all. But there's a few tracks on it that I would listen to. Some of the singles that dropped before the album came out, like Hello Earth, I would listen to. Okay, we move on to Windows 96's 2020 release, which is called Glass Prism. Glass Prism, compared to Enchanted Instrumentals, I really like Glass Prism, bruh. It takes notes from so many past drops, like optimized, specifically that kind of percussion thing that I mentioned with like the tambourines and stuff that you hear in optimized appears a lot in Glass Prism. The opening track has a really great upbeat kind of sound as well. That kind of sounds like something from NEMATOPHY, but combined with the sounds of something like Enchanted Instrumentals or 100 Mornings or something like that. It just takes so many great notes from so many albums already up here and mixes it together, combined with that signature Windows sound that has been established already. I'd probably put it at the top of great. I really like Glass Prism a lot. Okay, we got Mirror Gallery up here. This is a single, so we'll just get out of the way alongside Lynx and Ex Dystopia, Kid and Cry Again. Now we've got the final 5 albums here, ladies and gentlemen. Well, this is an EP, but the final 4 albums plus an EP, and this one is Into the World-y, or Into the World, and this was released at the beginning of, I think, 2021, and this was an album that Windows 96 dropped under the name of Gabriel. He actually said he was going to be going by Gabriel from now on. He was going to drop the Windows 96 thing. It didn't last very long because we came out of Magic Peaks and then it was Windows 96 again. I don't know why, but he did. Now, Into the World was one that weirded me out when it first dropped because I knew at this point by 2021 that Windows has gone by different names to explore different sounds, like with Vistas of Chaos with White Gabriel and Nostalgia Gaius with Gudang. But with Into the World and Gabriel, it just sounded like a Windows album. It takes a lot of notes from NEMATOPHY again, with that kind of upbeat, kind of really blissful sound, and even like video game soundtrack elements with like Plume Valley and stuff. But Into the World itself is, you know, it's pretty good. It's definitely up there and great again. I think at this point we're kind of past all the good albums, and we've just got greats from now on. But I'd probably put it below Plume Valley and over Meditations and Gaius and Instrumentals and such. It's pretty good. It's great. It's not one again, it's kind of like optimized and albums like that where I don't go back to listen to them all as often as I should, because I know they're sick. Just there's so much to sample from, because you can sit for all these albums and just they come on one after another, and you just don't get to explore these ones as often as you should. But Into the World's interesting. Again, we've got this, I keep bringing it up, but you know, obviously it's this pre-established Windows 96 signature sound that I can't describe unless you go and listen to the albums starting from this one. But it contains elements of that upbeat, blissful kind of sound that we hear in the NEMATOPHY, and these video game kind of chiptune bits and instruments like the bongos and stuff that we hear in Plume Valley, all put into the world, and it's great. It's not one of the best of the greats. I think these 4 here are my favourites of the great albums, honestly, and these 4 are like down below in the greats. But this is the top of the down belows, if that makes any sense. I'll give you some examples of some tracks from Into the World that exemplify what I'm talking about with this Plume Valley, NEMATOPHY type sound. Songs like Star Level 1 and 2, Fairy, 32K, It's True, The Gift, they kind of all retain this kind of video game soundtracky kind of thing. But Questing is a fucking banger track. It's almost got a little bit outrunny kind of sound. It's not as heavy as like Raw Killing or Vistas, but it's more of a slower thing like you hear in Reflections, I think, which is really fucking cool. And Into the World is very interesting. It combines a lot of different things, but you know, I don't know, it doesn't resonate with me as much as these ones do, but it's good. Okay, now so we've got the second and final EP. Oh no, is this the third? Yeah, I think Vibes and Cut Up Sections are EPs. Well, this is Red Twilight anyway. This is the latest release. Well, this is like 2021, but the latest release from just Gabriel is Red Twilight. And this is another one that's up there in the greats again. It kind of retains sounds that you might hear from actually these later albums here, Empty Hiding World and How to Hide Through Walls and stuff, or How to See Through Walls. Yeah, there's only like 5-6 tracks in this thing, kind of like Vibes, but it doesn't hit as hard as Vibes in my opinion. It's kind of got, again, signature Windows sound, kind of takes from a lot of different albums again, like the two that we're going to be discussing and after we talk about this one. Yeah, Red Twilight, bro, it's got that ethereal kind of sound to it that we hear in Optimized and Gradient Horizon and stuff like that, but it's got more of a beat and an upbeat kind of thing that we hear from maybe something like Glass Prism, Enchanted Instrumentals, this kind of thing. For an EP, it's really good, bro. Every song in it is a banger. This is one that you can listen to all the way through. I think in terms of Gabriel stuff, I'd actually prefer it to Into the World. I know it's an EP, but I'd rather listen to this whole EP than this whole album personally, so it's up here. It's in the middle of the 4 greats and the 4 not so greats of the great tier list. Yes. Red Twilight, Gabriel. Okay, next up we've got the 2021 Windows 96 album, which is Magic Peaks, and I'm actually going to put it at the top of great again. These two are fucking bangers, but this one I actually prefer to Glass Prism because this is another one that retains a lot of elements from a lot of really great albums. It kind of picks up again from where Into the World did, where it combines stuff from like Plume Valley, NEMATOPHY, sounds from 100 Mornings as well. It's just a fucking great upbeat. This one is a real journey, bro. Magic Peaks just slaps. The opening track really sets you up again, like with a lot of these fucking albums do. One of the best opening tracks I think of any of Windows albums. Looking forward, it just slaps. Yeah, I think Magic Peaks is like the beginning for these two, especially, where like I keep saying, Windows 96 is so consistent in every album with every sound that leads into each song perfectly. This one almost sounds like one long song, but each segment of the song sounds so different, and compared to the rest of the song, they can be broken up into different tracks. It almost seems that way. Magic Peaks is just a solid banger. I love Magic Peaks very much. Okay, next up we've got Windows' 2022 release, Empty Hiding World, which is almost doing the same thing as Magic Peaks does with this pre-established thing where the whole album sounds like one song just split up because all the tracks sound so different. But it's not as like upbeat and kind of optimistic sounding as Magic Peaks is, I suppose. It's not like a dark sounding thing. It's like Nostalgia Gaia says, it's much more like just like an introspective kind of lower tone kind of thing, like Pale Meditations is maybe, or Red Twilight maybe, or Gradient Horizon. Not saying that they sound the same, but like the tone is very similar, I suppose. I'll put it this way, like of the recent releases, like as when I start, this is like my least favourite, second favourite, most favourite, and Empty Hiding World is probably below these two. I'd probably put it below Plume Valley, above Red Twilight though. Empty Hiding World is really great, but it's not been one of my favourites so far. It's pretty cool, like I say, it's much more of a down, low kind of tone. I guess I just prefer a lot of the happier, upbeat kind of stuff that Windows does, which is why this is, I know Reflections doesn't exemplify that at all, but it's just, Reflections just transcends everything else that's been done so far. I don't know what to tell you, but NEMATOPHY is like the second up there because it's such an upbeat, blissful, happy fucking album that just makes me feel things. Same with Vibes, same with Magic Peaks, same with Glass Prism. Empty Hidden World is really, really great, but it's not up there with these ones. Okay, next up we've got Windows 96's latest release from this year, How to See Through Walls. And this one transcends the last few albums from the past couple of years. Like, I think Empty Hidden World so far is like the last one that kind of has that signature sound that he's been exploring. How to See Through Walls kind of just explores a different sound of like every fucking track, and samples like so much tone and stylings from his past albums as well. One of them even samples the fucking announcer voice from Half-Life, you know, the robot voice that kind of says doors are opening and shit. Fucking crazy. Every song just sounds so different and has such a beautiful, but yet is so consistent with each other as well, which is so crazy to me. Like, just going through the tracks, BM 1999 sounds like something from 100 Mornings. You're Perfect sounds like something that might be in NEMATOPHY or something. New Midst Acid sounds like something that may be in Enchanted Instrumentals. 240p sounds like something that may be in either Gradient Horizon or Optimized. ASDF sounds like something that might be in fucking Plume Valley or Into the World or Red Twilight even. And Spirals, bro, the opening of Spirals, like, the album cover has this like little jester dude. It sounds like some medieval futuristic stuff at the beginning. It's crazy. So it samples tones from all these different albums, but has its own sound in the mix and makes it its own sound as well. This is probably my favourite recent release of Windows 96 so far. I'd probably honestly put it at the bottom of the no, I'd actually put it above Vibes, right next to One of the Mornings. How to See Through Walls fucking slaps. I like it a lot. Okay, finally we've got to organise the singles and then we're done, bruh. So we're just doing singles from worst to best. Essentially. So I'll start because I know what the best one is going to be, and it's Cry Again. Cry Again was a single I think that dropped at the end of either 2022 or 2021, and this is for some reason Windows 96 featuring Gabriel. So this is like a joint effort between two of the same person. I don't know what that means. This is a very interesting one because this is the only single that Windows 96 has ever released. These three ones here are either collaborations. This one's a remix of another Vaporwave artist. This is a collab. This is a collab. This is the only Windows 96 single ever. I don't know why. I don't know. This dropped in like 2021, so what was the album that dropped then? Was it Glass Prism? To be fair, I could not see this fitting in Glass Prism, so I can see why it would be a single on its own. Like, it's either this or this, but this retains a lot of things from like One of the Mornings and stuff like that. Again, that signature Windows sound that's established with this album here. But I don't know what, bruh. Like, Cry Again just fucking bangs, especially, I think it's the big crescendo chorus thing that happens in the middle where it just explodes, bruh, with like all these different sounds and stuff. It just sounds fucking great. Cry Again is an amazing single. I'd love to have seen a full album with this sound because this one bangs, man. So next up we got Mirror Gallery. Like I said, this is a remix done of another song called Mirror Gallery from a Vaporwave artist called FM Skyline. He's not one I've listened to a lot, but I've listened to, I think, one of his albums, which is called Advanced Memory Suite. And, you know, it's kind of almost got that Windows 96 kind of vibe about it, but it's more samplings of Vapor. It's more obviously Vaporwave than Windows 96 is. It samples a lot of like 80s and 90s nostalgia beats, kind of the way like Luxury Elite does, I suppose, but Mirror Gallery has that Windows 96 spin on it with the with like the cover of the single, and again, I'll say it one more time, the signature Windows 96 sound of that, just like the beat and the rhythm and the warbling sounds and stuff that you expect from Windows track. I think this will probably actually stay here as the second best. It's a really great remix. I think it'd be cool to see Windows remix other tracks from Vaporwave artists, because this is so cool because it retains that FM Skyline sound while beautifully remixing it with that Windows 96 sound and basically making it like this is Windows 96's rendition of this song, and it sounds really, really great. This is actually the perfect order. I think we don't even need to move anything here. That's ironic. This is Links. This is a collaborative effort between Windows 96 and another artist called Hotel Pools. And the two have a very similar sound already. I don't know, Hotel Pools is a bit more of a, I guess I don't know how to describe it. It's not as ethereal sounding, I suppose. It's not as like echoey, not like in a big echo chamber like a lot of Windows 96 albums are. It's much more just straight Vaporwave beats. But simply put, like Links just marries these two sounds together perfectly because you can hear Windows' contribution and Hotel Pools' contribution, and they just marry up very well. So yeah, Lynx is the third. This one is very, very interesting. This is not called X Dystopia Kid, that's the name of the artist that Windows collabed with on this. This was from a set apparently. I just found this is on Windows 96's channel. So this is a beat that was done during a set between Windows 96 and Dystopia Kid, and it's not my favourite really. This would probably be an average on its own, just because they marry up very interesting for sure, but Dystopia Kid is definitely much more of a solid Vistas of Chaos kind of outrun dark synthwave kind of sound. It just goes together with Windows 96's classic ethereal vaporwave sound that runs through all of his releases and stuff like that. So yes, it'll be at the bottom of the singles. It's a good it's a good set. It's a very interesting thing that happened, but yeah, these ones are just much more of my thing. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Another tier list for you all of Windows 96 albums, singles, and EPs. I did this artist first because, you know, it's Vaporwave, it's a different thing. I don't think a lot of people would know Windows 96 other than like the Vaporwave community and stuff. Please listen to all of this and give him a go and just listen to him because he fucking slaps. One of my favourite artists of all time, sincerely. I'd love to have more of this stuff on vinyl, but it drops and appears whenever it feels like it on Bandcamp and all this kind of stuff. And if you already like Vaporwave, then you need to listen to Windows 96. He's just a fucking banger. There's a lot of stuff with 100% electronica, which I've talked about in my collection video of albums, or I showed you George Clanton, who's in that kind of scape as well. And he's a perfect example as well of like the Vaporwave sound, but his own stuff. It doesn't sample anything. Well, he samples stuff, but a lot of his albums are just like this one particularly. It's just his own stuff, and it just all bangs, bro. I love Windows 96. And it was an interesting research project as well to look at all this older stuff, like his early shit. It's just very interesting, so yeah, check it all out, bro. And like I say, there's no bad album. These are just a wide scope of albums that are good and great and the best, etc. Anyway, Windows 96, Gabriel, White Gabriel Godang, whatever the fuck he wants to call himself. Gabriel Eduardo, I love you. You're a talented man. One of my favourite instrumentalists of all time. One of my favourite artists of all time. You just be breaking grounds, bro. Keep up. I will be listening. I'm looking forward to what else is to come. If there's anything else in this year. He's basically releasing a new album every year. So if there's any EPs or anything that might drop, because the last album, How to See Through Walls, dropped hella early this year. He usually drops something at the end of the year, so I'm just excited to see what comes next anyway. Pumped. Thank you all for watching. I'm going to run away now. Thank fuck. Run away!